everybody. Welcome back to the history of fresh produce. I'm so glad that you guys are here with us today. My name is Maddie Fisher, and tonight we're going to talk about dinosaurs and fresh produce. I know, I was thinking the same thing. Why? But hear me out. What if these prehistoric giants were the OG foodies? Snacking on dino-sized salads, and dare I say, the original plant-based eaters? On this episode of the History of Fresh Produce, your hosts, Patrick Kelly and John Papp, are digging up the dirt, literally. They're going to tell you what dinosaurs were munching on during the Mesozoic. I killed that one. I didn't even remember what Patrick told me how to say it.
Mesozoic Era.
But spoiler alert. Thank you. That's what I was trying to say. Spoiler alert, though, they weren't sipping on lattes from Starbucks or debating whether grapes belong in chicken salad, because they don't. Gross. So enjoy tonight's episode. It's going to be awesome.
I love it.
And cue the Jurassic Park music.
Oh, yeah. Hey, we should have done that for tonight. Maddie, appreciate you. Thank you for the amazing intro. So we'll see you in a bit.
Can you say that word again? Say it again.
Mesozoic.
Mesozoic. Got it.
You got it. You got it for next time.
There's going to be a lot of science verbiage tonight, Patrick, unfortunately for us. We're not a science podcast, so you're going to have to forgive us our history podcast, but we're going to do our best. But before we get into dinosaurs, welcome everybody.
Welcome back.
Back to our virtual connection. We were last, Patrick, right? In Atlanta in person.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Our first live in-person stream.
And Maddie was there. Maddie, it was actually all of us. All of us were there.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. But we have to revert back to our computer screens for this one again. But thank you for everybody that was there in Atlanta, watched us. That was a lot of fun to see so many faces and greet you all in person and all that fun stuff. And but before we go into dinosaurs, why don't we do a little catch up, a little housekeeping?
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, how have you been in the last? I mean, listen, you sound amazing.
That's because the Produce Industry Network has got me some new equipment.
You sound amazing.
This is what happens when you do a good job, I guess.
Hey, listen, all I'm saying is that's the first housekeeping I wanted to start with. New mics make a difference, seriously. And as we get a little bit deeper into the conversations, we want to make sure that we also have your attention. So that's one thing I definitely wanted to mention right off the bat. What's another update, John?
Well, so up to this point, what have you listened to? You've listened to the Salem witch trials during Halloween. So that was an interesting perspective on a familiar
That was fun,
story, right?
That was fun. I actually was talking to someone from Boston, and they mentioned that they're like, hey, have you been up here and done the whole deal up here and been here? And I was like, they're like, witches is really big. I was like, have you checked out the last 2 episodes of the History of Fresh Produce? She was like, what? She's like, no. She's like, I'm in. And I was like, hey, there you go. There's so many stories around witches.
We find weird stuff to talk about in time.
Yeah, of course.
Here. And then after that, we had a 2-part series on the spice trade wars.
That was interesting.
Which I did with a special guest, Giles Milton, who was, that guy is a fabulous storyteller. I mean, he's a fabulous writer, but then he shared the story verbally and also did an equally amazing job.
They did a great job.
And I'm not just pushing this book because we did an episode on it, but really that book is an amazing read. So if you enjoyed that episode, you got to pick up that book. Perfect gift for the holidays too. So it's that was a fun episode or series of episodes. And coming up,
what's tomorrow?
Yeah, we don't have a lot left of the year. So what's left on the calendar here for the 2024? We got Cornell.
That was fun. I learned a lot on Cornell, man. The Cornell one was fun. We got to talk to an esteemed gentleman. It was funny because we were talking. We were like, man, it's like this guy was back in the 1800s with him, right? Like he knew the history and I would say the story very well.
Yeah, he knew it inside out. There was nothing he did not know
No,
about.
we didn't know. 100%.
So that's going to be coming your way at the beginning of December.
Yep.
We have what could end up being a touchy subject. So
Go on.
we're going to put that out there to begin with. So I'm sure there's going to be commentary either which way. It's going to be about the fresh produce in the Israel-Palestine conflict. So there's a very interesting story there
Okay.
in between Israel and Palestine.
Okay.
So that will be coming before the holiday season. So stay tuned for that.
Well, and then the holiday season's coming. I know we talked about kind of throwing around an episode during our last live stream of the year, possibly organics, fascism, nuts, and Christmas. Like, there's a lot going on that we could
There's
possibly
other
do.
topics coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's some things coming up, but stay tuned, I would say.
Yes. So we have plenty of things to round off 2025 or 2024, I should say, and we're
Damn, back to the
eagerly
future.
gearing up for 2025 and putting
Yeah.
together that calendar of topics and stories that we're going to roll out. Which
Yep.
I'm sure
And then HFP Club, we've got some members already signed up. I've got a stack of books behind me that we're going to do some giveaways to as well. So if you were one of the first members between 2024 and 2025, we've got some books for you from all the way down from I got Harry Potter as cookbook. I got the Daniel Stone, right? The Food Explorer.
yeah.
I've got Craveable Obsessed by Jeffrey Sissel, another one I got for
Right.
some of the guests as well. But yeah, I mean, we've got some cool stuff. So make sure you go check that out. Log on to the Produce Industry Podcast. You can go to the website. Everyone, it's so easy. Click on the mobile app. You can log in via the web version if you don't want it on your phone. Easy as that. And go to History of Fresh Produce. Subscribe, and you'll get all the episodes. Some other more fun things that we're doing. We're going to have every video go up there pretty soon as well. And when we're together, when John and I are together, we're going to have some fun field trips as well. So
That's right.
stay tuned for that. And big surprise, because I want, for all you history buffs out there, John and I do have a surprise coming for 2025 around October. It's going to be big. Okay. It's going to be so big in a small version, right?
Honestly, I can't remember what it is right now. So I'm excited. Whatever you're talking.
John's excited. He doesn't even know
what it is.
Well, listen, we might bring a
Oh, yeah,
tangible
that's right.
item to you
I
in
remember.
2025. So again, stay tuned. We're going to announce it in January once we get all the details wrapped up. We're going to announce it in January along with the new platform that the History of Fresh Produce will be on, which will be Ag Life Media. So other than that, I think that's it, man.
I think so. So I think it's time to jump into our 4-wheel Jeep here.
And let's get going. I got my Jurassic Park shirt on.
You're ready. You're always ready. You're always in theme with your attire.
I'm just saying, man. Like, when you got kids, you make it happen.
That's true.
Listen. So, well, listen. You want me to start this thing off, or do you want to start it off and then I'll go into early plants?
Yeah, I mean, so look. So obviously, dinosaurs. We all know what dinosaurs are. If you have kids, it's probably a phase they went through for a period of time. I know mine are still kind of going in and out of the dinosaur phase. I know a lot more about dinosaurs and the name of dinosaurs than I ever thought I would.
Right.
At this age. So it was only natural, Patrick, that when you and I were talking, we're like, it could be actually pretty cool to talk about produce and dinosaurs and see what we can uncover there. So there is some interesting stories involving dinosaurs and its impact on fresh produce. So we're looking as a whole, the Mesozoic Era, which is colloquially known as the Age of Dinosaurs. Obviously, a huge time of incredible biodiversity. Obviously, a lot of plants in that environment that were nothing like the ones we're going to see today. But there are some fossil plants that still exist in our world today that come, derivatives of what was back then. And what we're going to dive into first is really what the plants looked like during the Jurassic and early Cretaceous periods. So these are kind of the latter ends of the dinosaur age. And those were dominated by something called gymnosperms. And Patrick, you're going to tell us a little bit about these plants because there's a few of them, and they all kind of have a different story. Well, we're going to both walk through them, but we're going to walk through each separately and kind of give you an idea and a flavor, no pun intended, of what those plants look like and how they translate into today. So why don't you kick us off on the
Will
plant?
do, will do. And everyone, please bear with me. John and I rehearsed these words the best we could when, so we're going to do our best. I mean, early plants, all right? So various sorts of gymnosperms existed, and John, can you manage the slide? Are you able to do that, or is it just on my side?
I think it's on your side. I don't even see the slides.
Oh, yeah. How dare me. All right. So listen, let's go here. There we go.
There it is.
All right, there we go. The cycads, once widespread, but now more common in the tropical regions, they look something like palms and something like pineapples, as you can see. But listen, they're neither of those. So they include small tree and shrub-sized species. They were common in the Mesozoic era. They actually look like sago palms,
Yeah, you're right.
right?
Yeah.
So, like you have today, that's tall. They come out in like 3s or 4s, right?
Yeah, I
So,
mean, it's those stereotype for those that can't see the slides are listening to this.
right.
These are like the stereotypical plants that you see like in any dinosaur landscape that an artist does,
Yeah,
right?
or Florida,
Or Florida,
or
you know, the land of the dinosaurs, right?
for lack of dinosaur purposes. Well, let's go to the next slide. And so the paleo artists draw cycades all the time, as they are among the most famous of ancient plant groups and a major part of many fossils, John.
Yes.
So, but here's the thing: they very rarely depict the incredible cones these plants produce. Okay, female cycads bear seed-bearing cones that are jaw-dropping. They're bright yellows, reds, oranges, and even purples, and they're massive. So
Yeah.
we're talking tens of kilograms in weight. Okay. So why exactly are they that colorful, though? I know you're wondering. Everybody's wondering out there. It's to attract animals. The seeds are surrounded by a thin, fleshy husk, a sort of like false fruit. Okay. Tasty, but not exactly a great dispersal mechanism. Okay. So modern science, they have a bit of dispersal problems. So studies in northern Australia show that small animals like opossums nibble on the fleshy husk, but usually leave the seed behind right under the parent plant. Not really ideal for spreading out and thriving, right, John? So that's
No.
why the cycads often form groves near the parent plant. So these groves can be long lived, but isolated seeds rarely make it to new habitats at all. So cycads are either male or female, and they need others of their kind nearby to reproduce.
Mhm.
Okay, so basically, many living cycads are confined to small habitat patches and rarely, if ever, are able to colonize new areas. They're stuck in a way in the absence of very truly big animals, right? So why haven't they evolved smaller seeds that animals could carry further? Well, without truly large animals like the megafauna of the past, shrinking the seeds might only make it worse on things.
Yeah.
So this beautiful female cone right here,
Yeah, it's
and
massive.
it actually is. It is massive. So large animals, okay? So enter large animals now extinct and megafauna like sauropods and massive marsupials were nature's cycad gardeners. They could eat dozens of seeds at once and carry them far and wide before planting them with a pile of fertilizer. And in today's world, think African elephants. They're one of the few animals that can still fulfill the ancient role. For example, elephants eat whole cones of the Encephalotos pagis and spread its seeds through their droppings. Thanks to them, the E. pagis is among the most widely distributed cycads today, John.
Well, there you go. See, they're carrying on the dinosaurs' responsibility.
It's not bad, okay?
Yeah.
Next, the nuts of the cycads or the orontis. These are hard, right? So
Yeah.
beyond their ecological quirks, cycads have cultural significance too. Okay, so take Cycas orientis, for instance. The Yolngu people of Australia's Arnhem land have long harvested its seeds. So all the way back in time, they've mastered the art of leaching out its toxins and turning it into paste, which is then wrapped in bark and cooked in an open fire. So, and in Vanuatu, cycads are more than just a food source. Known locally as namili, the plant is a symbol of traditional culture. So its leaves even, John, appear on the national flag and coat of arms, a powerful testament to cultural importance.
It's pretty neat that a plant like that from the dinosaurs is still, it's not widely, accessible everywhere, but in certain cultures it's still being
Still there.
and yeah, so whatever the dinosaurs were eating, some humans are still eating today.
Oh yeah,
pretty wild.
100%.
Even roasting nuts on an open fire.
Even roasting nuts on an open fire.
That's
Dinosaurs, not Chesters.
No, those are the cycad nuts. You got to be careful because those have toxins in it, like you said.
Oh, they do.
A lot of these plants from the Mesozoic era, you got to be careful. But
You got to be careful.
cycad's just one of them. There's another amazing one which we came across that were quite prominent during the dinosaur age, and those were ginkgos. The ginkgos, and they're probably the oldest group of plants to produce those edible false fruits. And this, I guess you can call it an ancient survivor, has been around basically since the Permian period, which is about 300 million years ago. And back then, dinosaurs hadn't even appeared yet. So, and ginkgos were still thriving. So this is how old this plant is. And if we fast forward past the dinosaurs on the other side of history, you have early humans that were actually cultivating this, and even remains commonly planted today, and actually is widely regarded as a living fossil. So ginkgos are a pretty neat plant. They're also incredibly resilient, so they can tolerate pollution, compacted soils, urban environments, like very few other trees can. So they can, handle a lot of that hustle and bustle of human enterprise and whatnot. And they're actually even rarely troubled by pest or disease. So this is a pretty impressive plant, and a really great example and testament to the toughness of this plant is actually found in Hiroshima, Japan. So you have 6 ginkgo trees located about 1 or 2 kilometers from the 1945 atomic bomb explosion. And not only do those trees survive the ginkgos, but they continue to grow. So that just shows you the sheer toughness of the ginkgo tree. And they're not just tough, okay? So they're also very useful. So the ginkgo wood of the tree is prized for making fire-resistant furniture, chessboards, and even casks for brewing sake. And the seeds, on the other hand, though, they're a little bit more complicated. So this is kind of actually funny when I was reading about this. So the seed coats of the modern maidenhair tree, which is the ginkgo biloba, are yellowish and are said to smell, Patrick, and probably taste like, I would assume, like carrion or vomit. So not exactly something you would probably want to embark on.
I don't think so, my friend. No, thank you.
Not only that, not only do they smell awful, but the toxic seed is contained within a soft, edible, what we just described.
It kind of looks like lychee.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Just a little bit.
It does. It kind of looks nasty, though. Now that I know what it could smell like, I'm kind of.
I don't want it.
No, I don't. I don't really want it too. That said, though, as the tree's basically almost extinct in the wild, it's hard to say what kind of animals are supposed to eat this nasty smelling fruit. But according to locals, where these trees do still grow in the wild, the fruit of the last wild trees in what is believed to be the Tianmushan Reserve in eastern China are occasionally eaten by small carnivores. And those include palm civets, raccoon dogs, leopards, and the like. So the seeds survive the journey through a carnivore's digestive system. And though actual new seedlings are extremely rare, sadly, little research is being done on the ginkgo seed dispersal, probably because nobody wants to get near these darn things. But anyway, if the fruit of these ginkgos were similarly disgusting, because remember, these are what we will label as modern ginkgos. If they were similarly disgusting back then, they probably would have been eaten by a wide variety of carrion-loving animals, from dinosaurs to pterosaurs. It's been suggested even that they were hoarded by multi-tubular tuberculates, superficially rodent-like Mesozoic mammals, only distantly related to anything living today. So that's what they suppose were munching on these delicious, ramen-smelling kernels. Um, but but despite the health risks in certain cases, this nut-like kernel of the seeds are actually esteemed in Asia and are a traditional ingredient in Chinese food. So the ginkgo nuts are used in kanji, which is basically a form of savory rice porridge, and are actually even often served at special occasions such as weddings and Chinese New Year as part of a vegetarian dish called the Buddha's Delight. So it is still consumed, and the nuts or the of that fruit, and it has also been used in traditional Chinese medicine since at least the 11th century. You have the ginkgo seeds and leaves and nuts that have been traditionally used to treat ailments like dementia, asthma, bronchitis, kidney and bladder disorders. The list kind of goes on and on, but that all said, there is no conclusive evidence that ginkgo is useful for any of these conditions. And we've seen this a bunch of times already, Patrick, in a few other episodes we've done on early medicinal uses of plants. They're not necessarily conclusive, but
Yep.
there's a history of them being used for these things. But beyond that, the ginkgo leaf, as you kind of showed us with the cycads being integrated with culture and modern traditions, the same thing is done with the ginkgo leaf. So the ginkgo leaf is actually a symbol of the Urasenke school of Japanese tea ceremony. The tree is actually also the official tree of the Japanese capital of Tokyo, and the symbol of Tokyo is a ginkgo leaf. And since 1948, the badge of Tokyo University has been two ginkgo leaves, which have become the university logo in 2004 with a redesign. You can see that if you are watching right now on the screen. And on the other side of that picture, you'll actually see a sumo wrestler's hair bun. And in professional sumo, wrestlers ranked in the two highest divisions wear an elaborate top knot called the oyomagi, which means or translates into English the ginkgo leaf top knot because it resembles the leaf of the ginkgo tree. So how about that? So you have a tree that's older than the dinosaurs, that was around during the dinosaurs and likely consumed by dinosaurs, still being respected and integrated into cultures of humans today. Pretty amazing.
I think so. I think it's pretty darn cool, man. I think that as
Yeah.
hey, put me in the corner like that. How dare you? No, it's interesting how some of these things shape, right, our future, where we are today, and I think it's kind of cool. I mean, we're gonna keep moving on, and I wish you could control this presentation, but you can't.
I may wish I might.
Which is totally fine. It's totally fine. I'm gonna kick you back though for a second. And so look, um, these are conifers or conifers, highly diverse tree and a shrub-sized species, right? That includes pines, araucarians, cypresses, including junipers, redwoods, sequoias, dawn redwoods, spruces, cedars, all kinds of other trees. And while you might think of the conifers as producing those hard, scaly cones we associate with around the Christmas time decorations, right? There's another side to this story. So many conifers, especially some of the oldest lineages, grow fleshy female cones. These aren't your typical cones, though, okay? They're highly modified with a fleshy outer layer, okay? So they're a little bit different, and that makes them, okay, John, ready? That makes them look and function more like berries. Would you have thought that?
Sure. I would have not. I didn't even know there was female cones and male cones. So I'm very
No, I mean, there's got to be a female male to everything, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't know they
there
were so drastically different like that.
no, but all right. So now birds and squirrels and even humans have been known to snack on them. Okay. And
Okay.
while botanically different, these female cones resemble berries in all practical purposes. So they are present in a number of most ancient living lineages of conifers. That's Taxaceae and Suprasacia. These are fossils dating all the way from the early Jurassic era. And in the Podocarpacea, which is even older, John. So the next slide we have is now these berries,
yeah.
right? The taste and color of fleshy cones varies, as do the animals they attract, but they generally prefer dinosaurs. That's right, everyone. These attracted dinosaurs. So go put these out on the porch. We'll see if we can't catch a couple T-Rexes. Okay, no. Take the common juniper, John, for instance. It's fleshy, pungent blue. Cones often mistaken for berries are a favorite to thrushes in the Mediterranean. So, the sweet bright red cones of the yew trees, okay, thrushes and waxwings can't resist them either. Then there's the cockapoo, New Zealand's rare flightless parrot. Its breeding cycle depends on the availability of the orange red cones of the rim yew tree and type of podocarp. So when these cones are plentiful, the cockapoo thrives. What's incredible, though, is how little some of these conifers have changed since the Mesozoic era. So fossils from the early Cretaceous show years and other fruit-bearing conifers that look remarkably similar. Okay, especially to their modern counterparts.
Yeah.
It's looking like into a window of Earth's prehistoric past. Okay, not all ancient plants survive, though. All right, that's one thing I will tell you. And as we kept moving in, another group, so the Benthelians, another group of Mesozoic trees and shrubs, have vanished entirely, John.
Wow.
So, but their fossil remains remind us of the incredible biodiversity that one existed alongside of the dinosaurs, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, considering everything, I mean, that was just the one group on our list that didn't survive. Everything is still there's a existing form of that plant today.
Yeah.
Not necessarily as widespread as it once was during the dinosaurs, but we still got some plants from the dinosaurs that the dinosaurs enjoyed and lived around and snacked on. So pretty neat.
Yeah, pretty cool.
But what about the fruit? We still haven't even talked about fruit or vegetables for that matter. So let's talk a little bit about fruit, right? So, and that has to do with flowering plants, right? Because all these plants that we've been talking about already are not flowering plants. Giant gymnosperms are basically non-flowering plants. Now we're going to talk about flowering plants. And the reason why we didn't talk about too much about flowering plants up until this point is because flowering plants only really started to appear towards the end of the Cretaceous period, which is the last period before the dinosaurs went extinct. And we're going to get into the period where they disappear, but let's not get there just yet. So flowering plants, there were, like I said, they started to emerge. Basically, we associate that with edible fruit and berries. And for the most of the Mesozoic, anything like avocados or grapes, any kind of berry, that we have today, blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, those just did not exist. So I'm sorry to ruin anyone's dream, but dinosaurs were not enjoying the fruits that we're eating today. But this does not mean, of course, that the Mesozoic animals didn't eat sweet fruit-like plant parts, because flowering plants are not the only ones that are producing them. So fruits and berries, like we're talking about, which are these flesh, energy-rich plant tissues that the plants use to bribe animals in dispersing their seeds. We found that in some other formats, in the gymnosperms, but they weren't, they're called false fruits. Now, flowering plants, so while the non-flowering plants are called gymnosperms, these are called angiosperms, the flowering plants. And they are a major group of the modern plants. So with very rare exceptions, if you've eaten a plant, it was an angiosperm. And angiosperm is a group within the seed plants, and their mode of reproduction is basically develop a specialized set of both male and female sex organs. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of science talks in this particular episode, but we're trying to keep it history focused here. But it's important to understand why the science matters within this story. So these angiosperms usually have bright colors, they have attractive smells, they have interesting patterns on the flowers, and this is all really to attract pollinators, right? Just like today, and that's typically flying insects. And they move the pollen, containing basically the male sex cells, to the flowers of other plants, where the female sex cells are. And until the point that the fruit is, I would say, ripe and whatnot. These angiosperms remain bitter. The fruit of these angiosperms remain bitter. They remain hard, dull colored until the seeds are ready to grow. So all very similar stuff that we see today in our normal gardens. Now, if angiosperms evolved from flowers and fruit in the Cretaceous, who were their target audience, right? Who are the flowers targeting first and foremost? So you have earliest Cretaceous birds, which were these flying theropods, which were still relatively rare at that period, and none show nectar-eating adaptations. Okay, so they weren't great targets for these flowers. Mammals, they were small. They may have been pollinators, but no bats. Okay, bats were not around yet. Insects, beetles, flies, all that stuff, they were present in the dinosaur era and were almost certainly the main pollinators in the Mesozoic, just as they are today. So they were most likely the targets for these flowers. And what about the fruit? So you got the herbivorous mammals of the early Cretaceous, but they were very small. And yes, they may have eaten some of the berry-sized fruit, but no more than that. So they weren't a big player in this. You had herbivorous crocodilian forms, but those were also pretty rare at this point. But Patrick and everybody listening, they were herbivorous dinosaurs, which were very common, and they could easily eat and transport a lot of fruit. And so between the flowers and the fruit, we can thank the insects and the dinosaurs during this period in time. So as these angiosperms started to rise and start to take up more space in the land, although still very little compared to the conifers and the cycads and the ginkgos, you have low browsing herbivorous dinosaurs like your Ankylosaurus becoming dominant over the medium sized dinosaurs like a Stegosaurus, and the high dinosaurs, which were like your typical sauropods browsing around. And the question is, are these changes linked? So although angiosperms were present in the early Cretaceous, they seem to have been relatively rare then. Like I said, they weren't really the dominant plant type during the early Cretaceous and were not very likely to be a major food source for these groups at first. But it may be that the increase in those low browsing forms, like the Ankylosaurus, favored the spread of herb-sized angiosperms. So we can hypothesize that it was these low browsing dinosaurs that were helping to spread these early flowering plants. And by the late Cretaceous, many modern groups of angiosperms were present. You have magnolias, you have rose relatives, you have maples. And again, the reason how we know this is through fossils. These are fossils, whether they be fossils of the actual plants within stone or rock, or with fossilized within the stomachs of these dinosaurs that they have uncovered. So it was actually not that long ago that they actually were able to find or discover that grasses were also starting to appear during this period, which is pretty neat. So grasses include not only the stuff that grows in lawns and meadows, but all the grain producing plants, wheats, barley, bamboo. This was all starting to appear during the late Cretaceous. And you even have discoveries, like I said, that found in a titanosaur sauropod coprolites, which are basically fossilized dinosaur poop. They found grasses in there. So we can see, again, not that this was a major part of their diet, but dinosaurs were starting to eat some of these grasses and some of these fruits, and most likely helping to spread those early angiosperms across the land. But Patrick, there's one specific one that happens to be labeled the earliest known fruit eater.
Which
right?
one? You want me to tell? You want me to tell? You want me to tell them? Don't you? I mean, I can do it. If you want me to, I can do it. Listen, the earliest known fruit eater. What would you guess? Just if you were to guess, like which one was the earliest fruit eater out there?
I mean, I see the notes, but before I did it, I figured it would probably be some sort of bird-like creature, right? Because birds
Yeah.
still today, birds are the closest ancestor of the dinosaurs that exist today. So I figure, okay,
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
something
So a
to do with
T-Rex, 100%. Like little guy's got his little arm, just picking
picking little berries.
picking those little berries, picking those little berries. Well, listen, let's. I'm gonna go to the next slide so we have it. So we have it pulled
There
up.
it is.
And so while T-Rex wouldn't show up for another 50 million years, another fascinating creature was already soaring through the skies.
There you
Okay.
go.
This is a hard one. Jehalornornis. Woo. That's a Jeholon. How would you say this one, John? This was a harder one to pronounce.
Let's see, Jeholornis.
Jeholornis, yeah, Jeholornis. I mean, Jeholornis is a mouthful. I mean, to say the least. Okay, but this long-tailed, raven-sized bird holds an important spot in history. It was just one of the earliest birds ever discovered. Okay, so it also happens to be the earliest known fruit eater.
This should
Okay,
be
everyone.
enough for our industry, right?
The earliest known. This would be the mascot.
Yeah. This is
Okay,
the mascot.
I can see it now.
I think we have to redo our logo.
I think we should definitely have this as our mascot. This little flyer might have helped pave the way for some of the fruit-bearing plants that dominate the planet today. You see, modern birds are incredibly important for spreading seeds, but so far, there has not been direct evidence of fruit consumption by early birds outside the bird crown group. All right. So, that being said, what happens? Well, guess what, John? It happens to go to this. The Jeholornis wasn't exactly a modern bird, though. All right. And I'm going to kind of pull this up just a little bit better so you can kind of see. You can kind of see what it looks like a little bit. I wanted to get that. If you're watching, you can kind of see it. So it's part of a group of primitive birds that evolved tens of millions of years ago, before what we call the crown group of birds, or the Neornithides. That's the group that includes all the birds alive today. So in fact, okay, the time separating the Jeholornis from the T-Rex is roughly the same as the time separating the T-Rex from us. So that, I mean, seriously, let that sink in for a minute, everyone. I mean, that means another billions of years before these two not interacted, were apart from each other. So a scan of the Jeholornis skull shows just how much of a mix this creature really was. Its head still had plenty of dinosaur-like traits, but it also had some modern features like a reduced set of teeth, hinting at a diet that it could include fruit. And Jeholornis was smart about its food choices. When fruit was in season, it gobbled up fruits, seeds, and all it could get. I wasn't saying his little hands on, but it's not his beak. Okay. So here's the things that were even cooler. The Jeholornis used a gizzard to crush tough seeds and other foods. So it had the tools to adapt or whatever the prehistoric menu had to offer. And by eating fruit and spreading seeds, the Jeholornis might have contributed to shaping the ecosystem of its time, laying the groundwork for the lush, fruit-filled world we know today. So it's amazing to think that this ancient bird, with its mix, okay, of dinosaur traits, everyone, was already setting the stage for a relationship between birds and plants that continue today, John.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how some things
It's kind of cool.
don't change. I mean, they do, but they also don't. They just evolve, and
Yep.
a lot of just carries through, just in different forms.
Yeah.
But with that question, with what you just described as the first fruit eater, the question now that comes to mind is, did dinosaurs then invent flowers in a way, right? Because are they the ones that helped push flowers out into the world?
Maybe.
Well,
Maybe.
that's exactly what a paleontologist, Robert Bakker, proposed back in 1978. And he wrote in a paper published in Nature, he suggested that eating habits of these large herbivorous dinosaurs like a Stegosaurus and the sauropods that we've been talking about might have actually paved the way for flowering plants. And here's his theory, right? So back in the Jurassic and early Cretaceous, these dinosaurs chow down on cycads and these conifers, all these things that we're talking about at the top of this episode. And these plants were their go-to buffet, right? This is what made up the bulk of their menu. But the sheer size of these herbivores meant they were consuming massive amounts of food, right? Yeah, I mean, we all know how large these creatures were. So picture a forest full of cycads being mowed down by a herd of sauropods. And this constant disturbance created opportunities, obviously, for fast growing plants to take over. Plants like angiosperms, which included the flowers, right? So then the question becomes, were the dinosaurs clearing the land for flowers to move in? And that's the theory. Yeah. So over time, flowering plants flourished, while dinosaurs like hadrosaurs and horned dinosaurs evolved powerful chewing adaptations to handle this new plant life. And it's really just a beautiful, poetic idea, right? That the dinosaurs helped flowers bloom. But sadly, I'm going to ruin it for everybody.
Don't do it. All right, do it.
Unfortunately, over the past 30 years, there's been better fossil records that have debunked this hypothesis. And studies now show that there's no solid link between dinosaurs and the origin of the spread of flowering plants. We do know that some dinosaurs obviously ate angiosperms by the end of Cretaceous, but the role in the rise of flowers, it's likely just a coincidence, right? But they did influence plant evolution. So think of herbivorous dinosaurs as plant predators, right? We all know about prey and predators. So think about it from that respect. So plants, right? They don't got legs, so they're not going to run. They can't hide. So over time, they develop some serious defenses: thorns, toxic chemicals, silica spicules, which basically act like microscopic daggers. And so for plants, every bite that they encounter is a battle. So take conifers, for example, right, Patrick, that you touched on at the beginning. A recent study actually suggested that the feeding habits of sauropods may have shaped the evolution of their cones. So the cones that we see on some of the conifers today, right? Pine cones, as an example. So during the Jurassic, conifers like the Araucaceae, commonly called monkey puzzle trees, started developing cones with more protective tissue around their seeds. And this might have been in response to the appetites of sauropods, which relied heavily on those trees as a food source. So the idea is that these cones were getting tougher because the dinosaurs were chowing down on them. But it wasn't just dinosaurs, right? You had early birds, you had small mammals, you even had insects that were chewing and piercing through these little cones of these conifers. So it's a multi-species arm race, and figuring out exactly who influenced what is, well, at the end of the day, pretty tricky, right? When you're talking about
Sounds like it.
So it's hard to pinpoint exactly what impact which creature made on what plant. But that all said, dinosaurs may not have given us flowers per se, but we can say that their influence on the plants of their time was profound, right? They were unwitting participants in shaping this natural world, a world that we still see echoes of today through the plants that still grow in our world.
100%. 100%. You know, I got to throw some comments up here. When you were talking about all the flowering and the fruit, it's funny. Patrick Eubanks jumped in. I like his first comment. He was like, "Sex sells," and then he was like, "Nope, sex sells."
The auto spell or
Yeah, there was a lot of biology we were going through and the anatomy of the plant as well. We had some good ones, and then Ross always jumps in and talks about different things, like, you know, when we were talking, is it as good as a Buddha's hand? When you were talking earlier, and then Dan Weiss, look what he did when he saw the thing that looked like a liche, which liches, I just had some the other day. They were I had some rambutan as well.
Yeah.
But they was like, oh man, I don't know about some of this. I like this. Juanita jumped in and said, "Were dinosaurs vegan?" Because that was the real question, right? When Maddie said it at the beginning.
Most dinosaurs were herbivorous. So yeah, most of them
right?
actually, you know, we see in a lot of the movies, obviously today in Hollywood and things like that, that, you know, they're you see the T-Rexes and the raptors and them all eating each other and stuff.
They're all eating people.
Right.
They're
But
not even eating each other. They're just eating people and lambs that are just
the
sacrificed.
majority of them were herbivorous. They were eating plants.
All right.
Yeah. So
All
there
right.
you go. But the dinosaurs obviously don't last forever, do they?
No, because you know what happens?
I do know what happens.
Everybody knows what happens. Almost
Fire.
Listen, almost 66 million years ago, but the dinosaurs' time, it was up, okay? The moment finally arrived at 66 million years ago when an asteroid crashes into Earth. The result, absolute devastation. 75% of all species wiped out, including the dinosaurs. But what happened next was just a transformative for life on Earth.
Yeah.
With the dinosaurs gone, the stage was set for fruiting plants to take over. The climate was shifting in their favor, and the animals who usually snacked on them were dead. The only thing left to do was to get comfortable and let their guard down, and that's exactly what they did. The prevalence of defensive features like spines declined as the adaptive cost of keeping them outweighed their benefit. Instead of fruit plants started to grow larger, fatter, and well, a little more vulnerable. You could call it nature's version of vacation.
Yeah. You're just laying down, eating what you want.
Yeah. All right. So take palm trees, for example, John. Even during the mega herbivore gap, the 25 million year period after the asteroid strike, they produced large fruits. How did they manage to spread through their seeds without dinosaurs to snack on them? Smaller mammals and birds stepped in, eating the fruits, and let's just say, distributing the seeds everywhere. And wasn't just palms. The extinction of the dinosaurs completely reshaped plant evolution. Completely. Okay, everyone? So a lot was going on when thinking or when seeing what was happening. Dense forests has started to rise, replacing the more open ecosystems. John, dinosaurs have been tamed with their bulldozing antics, knocking over trees and trampling plants. With these dense forests came new opportunities, though. Vines, like the ancestors of modern grapes, thrived in these environments, climbing tall trees to reach the sunlight. And mammals and birds, which exploded in diversity after the extinction, played a huge role in spreading their seeds far and wide. Some of today's most important crops, like tomatoes, potatoes, and even coffee, trace their evolutionary roots back to this transformative time. And superfamily of flowering plants called the lamids not only survived the asteroid impact, but flourished eventually, evolving into an estimated 40,000 species, John.
It's a whole lot of species. But it's pretty neat. I mean, because I think we imagine in our head that the world looks so similar when dinosaurs are around, but like painted there. I mean, these are huge things roaming the planet, and they don't care where they're going. They're just gonna squash anything in their way. So a good chunk of the land was kind of, like you said, were kind of cleared out because they're pushing through these forests and walking over trees and doing whatever. So
Juanita said climate change.
Yeah, I guess. Well, yeah. I mean, technically, it's climate change. Yeah, I mean, the climate did change.
The climate did change.
When you have an asteroid hit, the climate's going to change.
Bye.
But look, it wasn't just the plants to change, right? And you touched on that because there are other creatures that were appearing. So you have mammals that are evolving alongside the plants, and immediately after that asteroid hits, the animals that survived, right? Because they were animals that survived. They were no bigger than rats. So they were tiny mammals. And so they'd be scurrying through this barren, fern-filled landscape trying to, eat whatever they can. But you fast forward a few 100,000 years and you've got just something entirely different. And that's a drastic diversification of mammals. So they're growing larger. They're foraging in palm forests. They're adapting to these new plant resources that are appearing. And first came, and I thought this was a great label that a paleontologist named Ian Miller with the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, he coined it the pecan pie period, which is a period where you have these walnut-like plants and protein-rich seeds that start to appear. And then about 700,000 years after the asteroid strike, You have then what he coins the protein bar period that dawns, which is legumes start to appear like peas and beans. And these are all providing these nutritional boosts to the mammals that are around at that point eating these things. So this plant animal partnership, plants evolving fruits and seeds and animals helping spread them, they're really setting the stage for the ecosystems that we know today. And to think again that it all started with, or at least the jump to this next level all started with this cataclysmic extinction event of not only the dinosaurs, but like you said, Patrick, 75% of living species. So you get from these dense forests to flowering plants to the spread of mammals. The death of the dinosaurs may have been the end of one era, but it was the fertile beginning of another. And so one where the fruits of basically survival would quite literally just completely transform and shape the future that we all live in today. So that is basically the story of how dinosaurs, well, I guess their relationship with produce and how their existence, we can still see some of it today in certain plants, right, that we touch on, but how not only their life on this planet impacted, but how their unfortunate demise also set the stage for our industry and the food that we eat today. So it's a pretty amazing story that again just shows you the intricacy and the connections of all living things, regardless of how far away they are from us. They all have a very impactful uh, 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 yeah impactful way of seeing how things look today and how we see the world today. So it's pretty fascinating story, I thought, with dinosaurs and fresh produce.
I thought it was amazing. It was funny because when I was walking out the door, my wife saw me change and she's like, "Didn't you just change?" I was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "We're talking dinosaurs tonight," and she's like, "Makes sense,"
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of the topics that we cover, you wouldn't think that produce has to deal with it.
No,
Seriously.
no, let alone dinosaurs again.
I mean, but seriously, I mean, even going back to the things, some of the other topics that we've talked about, right? And I can't wait because everyone wait till we have our outer space. You know, it's coming. Listen, I'm dropping some hints for 2025, but John and I even talked about that, like because no matter where you go, and if you can grow fruits or vegetables, right, whether in a contained environment or with sunlight, that means there's going to be water, there's going to be nutrients in the ground, so it sets the stage for everything, right? So that's why some of the first tests when they go up and they were in some of the other places that we think they went to, right, John?
Yeah, exactly. No, but
But right, that's what you want to do. In some of the movies that we've seen, right? I've told you to watch like the Interstellar movies and stuff like that. They're really cool. But a lot of times when these people go, these colonists go, they're there to start something for the future. Nothing's there yet. So
no, it's plants. The more and more we talk about these different stories and the impacts they've had, whether it be on social political things or cultural things or even historic animals. The produce and plants in general have just played such a significant role. It might not be always front of stage, but
yeah,
in the background, they're that you can say that arguably about food in general. Every, like you've always said and what we've talked about here, we all have to eat, and
100%.
um, because of that, it has to do with survival. That's always going to play a role in a story in history because everybody wants to survive.
Yes,
And yeah, the story of plants is as old as time, well before, as you could have seen from this episode with dinosaurs, well before humans were even around, and I would argue even before dinosaurs were around. And I saw when we were doing this research, um, even before the dinosaurs, there are other mass extinction events, and actually, some of the very first extinction events were actually because of plants, believe it or not, because you had these plants that started off in the water, aqua marine life and all these things, and then they ended up moving onto land and then back, I think, into the ocean or something. Again, this is me just reading things, but basically they just completely messed up the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide and all these things, and just ended up killing a lot of creatures because of the imbalance. So plants have had a pretty huge impact on global history, that's for sure.
Yeah, they screwed it up.
Well, we're here for the ride. We're just one chapter in the story of
We're
where
just a blip in the story, man.
the plants are going to be telling stories about us in the future. Let's see what else we have here. I see another comment that came through here. So, what about in cold places that the dinosaurs and plants were in?
Pop it up on the screen. Can you? Which one? Oh, right here. Hold on. Here we go.
From the fish tank. What about in cold places that the dinosaurs and plants were in? Well, it's funny. It's the plants. So the gymnosperms, so the non-flowering plants, they liked drier, colder places apparently. So they did okay. However, the angiosperms, so the flowers, were a lot more robust and adaptive to extreme environments. They were able to react quicker and adapt quicker to these environments. So that's why these plants ended up coming out on top over those conifers and those cycads and things like that. And that's why you really only see those fossil plants, if you want to call them that, in very isolated parts of the world today, because they kind of just stuck in that environment. Like you said, also the seed dispersal process, they weren't made. They were adapted to dinosaurs, and because you don't have those big megafauna walking around anymore, they don't spread as much.
They also said I thought plants emitted oxygen.
They did, or they do. Sorry,
They do, and they did. No,
they, they do. I think what happened is, I think this might be with the my comment about how they caused one of the first mass extinctions. So I think they ended up just taking up so much of the space in the water and the oceans that they ended up sucking out. What would it be? They put into, what would it be? They suck in too much carbon dioxide, right? Or see, again, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to get into the science of it. But it had something to do with that they were completely overpopulating the area that they were in and causing all kinds of imbalance to other living organisms in the ocean. But maybe that's an episode for another time. You can talk about the first mass extinction involving plants.
I think so. Well, I'm looking forward to December. I'm looking forward to the holidays and having some fun for our last live stream in December, John.
Yes, we'll try to keep it a little more upbeat. I know we have some kind of downers in the pipeline with Israel-Palestine conflict and then organics and fascism, but we'll try to keep the holiday.
We're gonna come out with a bang in 2025. Don't worry, everyone.
We'll make it a little more uplifting for everybody. But these are still great stories. They just that might be, cozy stories.
I agree with you.
But yeah. So we have to thank everybody for joining us again tonight. We always appreciate everybody coming in to listen to us chat about produce and crazy stories in history. We will be sending out a poll, whether it be on LinkedIn and other social channels of ours. We are trying to reschedule and redesign our timing on things for next year. So one of those is going to be our live streams. We're probably going to move that to more of a daytime event versus at night. So please look out for that and provide us your feedback, because we obviously want to cater to everybody's schedules and make it as convenient for them as it is convenient for us. Here's a nice comment from Daniel, or I should say Dan.
Thank you both for yet another learning episode in the Circle of Life. Appreciate you both for what you do for the produce industry. Try to go to the exposure next year. Oh yeah, in Orlando. Hope to see you there. Yeah, no, for sure.
No, for sure.
Exposure. So no, and that's why we do it. We do it for the kids. No, we do it for everyone else. I mean, we're learning along the way, but yeah, I love it, John.
Yes. So thank you again, everybody. Stay tuned in the next week or two for the next episode to drop.
Yep.
And until then, have a wonderful evening, and we will see you all very soon.
All right. Goodbye from me.